My name is Madeline Grace Parker, and I'm 34 years old. I've been living in Singapore for 5 years as a regional manager for an American IT company. Reflected in the glass window of my office, I saw myself dressed sharply in a dark navy suit, looking every bit the successful career woman. In fact, my annual income is more than the combined total of my parents' and sister's family who live back home in Portland. I've kept running forward, driven solely by the desire to meet my family's expectations. That's our Madeline. We feel at ease knowing you're there. You're so cool, sis. Those words were my fuel. As the eldest daughter, I had to be the one holding it all together. Ever since I was young, my mother kept telling me that, and over time, those words became a kind of curse called responsibility that clung to me like a shadow. One night, a pop-up notification appeared on my laptop screen. It was a video call from my mother. When I answered, I saw her beaming smile, and behind her, my father waving a bit shyly. Madeline, how have you been? Look, I'm wearing the sweater you sent me. She was wearing the sweater with the snowman embroidery I had sent her last month. I'm doing well. You too, Dad. You both look great. So, Madeline, there's something important I wanted to talk to you about. It's about Christmas this year. On the other side of the screen, my mother looked a bit hesitant but stared at me with hopeful eyes. She lowered her voice theatrically and exchanged glances with my father before laughing. We talked it over and booked the perfect gift. It's a 10-day luxury cruise around the Caribbean. On the other side of the screen, my mother waved a brochure in front of the camera. It showed a massive, gleaming white cruise ship gliding through a turquoise blue sea. That's amazing. Have a great time. When I said that, my mother waved her hand dramatically. Oh, come on. What are you saying? This is a family trip. It's a trip for you. It cost around $10,000, but we don't need any help with the money. So hurry up and come home. It wouldn't be a real family trip without you, my father added with a bit of embarrassment. Those words slowly seeped into the softest part of my heart. A place just for me. It wouldn't start without me. Thanks to all the hard work you've done, our family can stand tall. You're the pride of this family. It was nearly impossible to take more than a week off during the busy season. But what came to my mind was a vivid image of all of us laughing together on the sparkling cruise ship deck. All right. I'll see what I can do to rearrange my schedule. Yay! That's our daughter. Natalie and the others will be thrilled. Hearing my mother's excited voice, I felt warmth swell in my chest. Yes, this is what I've been working so hard for. The next day, I made an earnest request to my boss. It was unheard of for the head of the Singapore branch to take a long holiday right before Christmas, but I pleaded, saying, it's a major family matter, and somehow managed to secure 10 days off. 2 weeks later, with the itinerary my mother had sent in hand, I headed to the airport. The departure lobby was packed with people about to go on holiday. Even so, my heart felt strangely calm. I took out my phone and sent a short message to one person. It was to my cousin, Lily Thompson. She's the only one who truly knows everything about me. I'm heading back to Portland for Christmas. I'll be in touch. Almost immediately, she replied. Safe travels. Will you have time to meet? I'm so excited to see you. A warm Christmas with my family was waiting on the other end of the 17-hour flight. Just thinking about it made any fatigue disappear. As I watched the lights of the city where I had built my success grow smaller outside the plane window, I whispered in my heart, wait for me. I'm coming home soon. It wasn't out of a sense of duty as the eldest daughter, but out of pure love and the joyful anticipation of the perfect vacation ahead. When I landed at Portland International Airport, I was greeted by the chilly, damp winter air I knew so well. Christmas wreaths decorated the terminal, and a cheerful recording of a carol choir singing Merry Christmas echoed through the space. The scenery flowing past the taxi window was one I had known since childhood. The rooftops and garden trees of the houses were all adorned with colorful lights. From every window, it seemed as though warm light and the sound of family laughter spilled out into the night. My heart, too, seemed to bounce in response to the glow. The taxi entered the familiar neighborhood. From the corner, the third house came into view, the one I grew up in. But the excitement in my chest turned into a cold sense of unease the moment we arrived in front of the house. It was dark. This time of year, it should have been the brightest on the block, with my father's extravagant string lights hanging from the roof and the blinking reindeer decorations on the porch. But now, the house was completely still, as if it had fallen into a deep sleep. The mailbox was stuffed with newspapers, and the welcome mat was littered with dead leaves that looked like they'd fallen days ago. Maybe they've just put off decorating because they were busy getting ready for the trip. I told myself that as I dragged my suitcase toward the front door, turning the cold metal key and pushing the heavy door open. I'm home. My cheerful voice echoed emptily through the hollow space. Inside, the house was freezing, as if the heating had been shut off. No one was on the living room couch, and the kitchen was dark. Mom? Dad? Natalie? No one answered. Only the low hum of the old refrigerator broke the silence from time to time. The sense of dread in my chest began to swell. I took out my phone and called my mother's number. After several rings, the call was forwarded to an automated voice. The number you have dialed is either out of service area or... It was the same for my father and my sister, Natalie. Maybe they'd just gone out to pick something up. I tried to believe that. But then, why was the house so empty, so cold? This wasn't the usual pre-trip chaos. It was a silence that felt like no one had lived there for days. Was there a clue? I opened a social media app without even thinking. The first thing that jumped out at me was a post from Natalie 3 days ago. It was a photo taken at an unfamiliar, luxurious restaurant. Lobsters and champagne covered the table, and my parents were smiling broadly as they raised their glasses. Beside them, Natalie, her husband, and their 2 children were all wearing matching Santa hats and flashing peace signs. And then I saw the caption under the photo, and it struck my heart like an icy arrow. Our long-awaited Caribbean cruise has finally begun. Best Christmas with the best family. Hashtag family trip, cruise, grateful, family first, blessed. My mind went blank. My fingers trembled, and I nearly dropped my phone. It had to be some kind of mistake. Was this a photo from last year? No. My mother was wearing the newly designed sweater I had seen on our recent video call. I scrolled down, and another post appeared, as if to drive the knife in deeper. It was from just 1 day ago. A group photo of the whole family on the deck of the ship, with the blue sea and sky behind them. They were all sun-kissed, all smiling like they couldn't be happier. There was no space for me in that picture. Family photo with everyone together. The blue sea is perfect. Hashtag Caribbean. Family is everything. Pure bliss. Everyone? But I'm right here. They lied to me, saying they had saved a seat just for me, and left me behind to enjoy paradise on tickets paid for with my own hard-earned money. It cost around $10,000 in total. My mother's words replayed in my head over and over again. That money came from the countless hours I spent grinding away in the brutal competitive world of Singapore these past 6 months, believing it was all for my family's happiness. And in that moment, like a dam breaking, a flood of memories came rushing back. When my father took early retirement. Madeline, you've got a good income. You can cover the mortgage, right? There's only a little left. Can I count on you? When my mother had knee surgery. I want the most advanced treatment available. It's not covered by insurance, but you can manage it, right? You're my sweet daughter, she said tearfully, when Natalie enrolled her kids in private school. Please, sis. It's for their future. They're your nephews and nieces. As if it were my duty, she demanded tuition from me. And I said yes to every single one of them, telling myself, I'm the eldest, and I have to be the one to hold things together. I would open my banking app and quietly tap the send button. Their words of thanks were always the same: light, automatic, routine. Thank you, that really helps. With just those words, they believed all my struggles could be erased and forgotten. To my family, I wasn't someone to be loved as a daughter or older sister. I was simply a convenient ATM that maintained their lifestyle. A high-functioning overseas machine that, when a PIN was entered during hard times, would dispense cash without complaint. I stood frozen in the middle of the cold, empty living room. With trembling hands, I opened my contact list on my phone. The first name I almost tapped was Lily Thompson. If I called her and cried about this hopeless situation, I knew she'd say, "I'll come to you right away." But just before my finger touched the call button, I stopped. No. If I gave in to my emotions now and relied on Lily's kindness, my resolve might waver. I turned off my phone and took a deep, steady breath. Not a single tear fell. Instead, from the very depths of my being, a kind of cold, solid anger rose, something I had never experienced before. It wasn't an explosion of intense emotion. Quite the opposite. My mind felt shockingly clear. The curse of being the eldest daughter that had bound me for so many years shattered with a soundless crack. It was as if the heavy fog that had clouded my vision vanished in an instant. That's enough. I clenched my phone tightly in my hand. I turned off the phone and took a long, deep breath. Then I whispered quietly, "Yes, that's right. I'll make this the best Christmas ever. A Christmas you will never, ever forget." My voice was, even to myself, shockingly calm and filled with determination. My revenge begins now. As I waited for dawn to break, I opened my laptop. First, I gathered the past 10 years' worth of emails and bank transfer records into one folder. My father's mortgage payments, my mother's expensive medical bills, my niece and nephew's summer school fees. The list of dates and amounts was a reflection of my life. They were undeniable evidence of the time and emotions I had sacrificed. Next, I opened a new notepad app and began listing everything I needed to do. There wasn't a single hint of hesitation in my fingers. By the time I finished the list, the sky outside was beginning to lighten. I took a shower and changed into a plain black pantsuit, simple, but it felt like armor made for battle. The face reflected in the mirror looked more resolved than it had in years, despite the lack of sleep. I quietly opened the front door and stepped into the cold air, still lingering with traces of night. My destination, the private banking department of the main bank, towering in downtown Portland. The receptionist greeted me with a mechanical tone, but the moment I gave her my name and account number, her demeanor changed to one of polite attentiveness. Perhaps it was because my name belonged to someone who regularly made large international transfers and held significant assets with them. I was promptly led into a private room behind a heavy mahogany door. Soon, an older gentleman entered and took a seat in front of me, introducing himself as Bennett. He was the man in charge of managing my assets. "Ms. Parker, your sudden return. May I ask if there's some urgent matter?" His voice carried the courtesy expected toward clients, laced with the cautious tone of someone trying to gauge the reason behind an unannounced visit. "Yes, Mr. Bennett. I've come today to have a number of matters handled immediately." I pulled a note from my handbag and placed it on the table. Then, I looked him directly in the eyes and spoke. "First, I need you to cancel all automatic transfers currently set up from my account, effective today. The transfers to Daniel Carter and Hannah Morgan. Also, the deposits into the Educational Loan Trust under the name of Natalie Brooks. All of them." Mr. Bennett's eyebrows moved slightly. "All of them, ma'am? Has something happened with your family?" "It's a personal matter. Please proceed with the request." My voice was surprisingly flat, even to myself. It carried no emotion, only facts. "Next, and this is the most important point," I continued. "I want the access I previously granted to Daniel Carter, power of attorney for my account, fully revoked. Right here. Right now." At those words, Mr. Bennett's expression visibly changed. This wasn't merely the cancellation of scheduled transfers. It signaled a complete breakdown of trust within the family. He was momentarily at a loss for words before he cautiously spoke. Understood. However, Ms. Parker, if we revoke the power of attorney, your parents will no longer be able to access even a single cent from your account, not even in an emergency. Are you absolutely certain about this? Yes, I replied calmly but firmly. That is exactly my intention. Seeing my unwavering attitude, Mr. Bennett seemed to understand that asking any further would be pointless. He nodded silently and began operating his tablet, printing out several documents. Then, if you would kindly sign these documents. He handed me a small stack of papers. A cancellation form for the automatic transfers. A formal notice revoking the power of attorney. I took out my fountain pen and signed each one smoothly. The only sound in the quiet room was that of ink soaking into the paper. When I had signed everything, I set the pen down and returned the documents to him. These procedures will be completed today, correct? Of course. Everything will be updated in our system by the end of business today. Good. Thank you very much. I rose quietly, bowed slightly, and left the room. As the elevator descended, my reflection in the glass showed no trace of emotion. All I felt inside was a cold sense of satisfaction, like the kind that comes after completing a task perfectly. 15 minutes by taxi from the bank. In a district lined with historic brick buildings stood the Price Law Office. After I gave my name to the receptionist, I was immediately shown to the back office. I sat down firmly in the chair across from Logan Price, the attorney, and got straight to the point. Mr. Price, I am here today to draft a new will. All existing versions are to be nullified. I recounted the events from the night before through this morning, presenting them in strict chronological order, with no emotion attached. That sounds incredibly difficult. Now, how would you like to proceed with the changes? I want to leave my entire estate to my cousin, Lily Thompson. This includes all real estate, securities, trusts, bank deposits, and life insurance payouts currently in my possession. And Daniel Carter, Hannah Morgan, Natalie Brooks, and her children? Not a single dollar, I said firmly. I want that clearly written into the will in such a way that it is legally indisputable. Mr. Price nodded slowly. Under Oregon law, there is no forced heirship that guarantees a portion of an estate to spouses or children. As long as your intentions are clearly documented and the procedures are followed properly, it will be extremely difficult to contest. However, they may attempt to challenge your mental competence. I'm expecting that, I said preemptively. So please also arrange for legal documentation proving that I am in a completely sound and stable mental state today. If necessary, I'll obtain a certified evaluation from a third-party specialist. At those words, Mr. Price smiled faintly for the first time. It was a smile that seemed to mix admiration with a hint of pride. Truly impressive. I promise to protect your intentions with the strongest legal shield possible. He immediately called in his assistant and instructed them to prepare the necessary documents. A draft of the new will. Documents related to the establishment of a trust. I picked up the pen and signed my name on the final page. Madeline Grace Parker. It was a signature of oath, one that marked my break from the past and my choice to live as a new version of myself. 5 days had passed since I began my quiet war in Portland. During that time, I had stayed at a downtown hotel and kept myself completely disconnected from everyone. The legal procedures with Mr. Price were moving forward steadily, and an unshakable fortress was taking shape around my assets, one that no one could breach. And then, the day arrived. The day my family would be pulled back from their Caribbean paradise into the real world. The first trigger came from Natalie Brooks. A short message appeared on my phone. Sis, where are you? My debit card isn't working. Is there some kind of system error? Of course, on the day I went to the bank, canceling those cards had been the very first thing I did. I left the message on read, but didn't reply. Less than an hour later, my mother called, her voice high-pitched and hysterical. When it went to voicemail, her rapid-fire words spilled into the recording. Madeline, what is going on? We got a call from the bank saying the mortgage payment couldn't be withdrawn after we got back to Portland. You've been sending the money, haven't you? Call me back immediately. Anger and commands. There wasn't a trace of concern for a daughter in her voice. Only frustration about their own lives being disrupted, swirling like a storm. And then, that night, the call finally came from my father. He had likely realized just how serious the situation was. I took a slow, deep breath. There was no longer any need to run. I set the phone to speaker mode and answered the incoming call. Hello. At the sound of my calm voice, my father seemed momentarily at a loss for words. Madeline. Finally. What the hell is going on? The cards are frozen, the mortgage is overdue, and the bank says the power of attorney has been revoked. This has to be some kind of mistake, right? Explain it to me. Behind his words, I could hear my mother's shrill voice. Let me talk to her. I'll handle this. And Natalie's saying, Dad, calm down. I listened to their panic with a calmness as if I were hearing about something happening in a distant country. Then I quietly spoke. It's not a mistake, Dad. I handled every bit of it myself. Wow, what? Why would you do something like that? Why, you ask? For the first time in my life, I cut my father off. While you were enjoying your family Christmas on a Caribbean cruise ship, I arrived alone at the airport in Portland. While you were posting about your greatest happiness on social media, I sat in a dark, freezing house and realized I had only ever been a source of money to you. The other end of the line fell silent, as if struck dumb. The blade of truth cuts deeper and heavier than any excuse. Eventually, my mother must have snatched the phone. A shrill voice burst from the speaker. What are you talking about? We thought you had gotten the dates mixed up. We were waiting for you. Please stop lying, Mom, I continued quietly. You said you had saved me a seat. But the airline tickets and cruise fees were paid for with the money I sent you, weren't they? It wasn't hard to check. My name wasn't on any reservation list. And the itinerary you sent me was 3 days off. You never intended to bring me in the first place. That's. It's enough, I said, once again cutting off their words. For years, I was your ATM. I sold pieces of my life so you could live in comfort and keep up appearances. But it's over now. This service has been permanently discontinued. Madeline, how can you say that? We're family. My father's voice came through, pained and desperate. But his words no longer reached my heart. Yes, we are. And that's why I'm giving you one final gift as a family. The wonderful opportunity to stand on your own 2 feet. Figure out the mortgage. Pay for Natalie's children's tuition. Do it yourselves. That's what real independence means. Wait, Madeline. Please, just let us talk. There's nothing left to say. With those words, I calmly but firmly pressed the red end call button. The ringtone began again almost immediately. Message notifications flooded in one after another. I ignored them all and, without hesitation, blocked every single contact from my family. When I set the phone down on the table, complete silence returned to the room. It felt as if I had finally removed a heavy suit of armor I had been carrying for years. A deep sense of liberation washed over me. That night, I made one more call to the only person I still needed to speak with. My cousin, Lily Thompson. She lived a modest but happy life in the suburbs of Portland with her husband, 2 kids, a dog, and a cat. After a few rings, I heard a warm voice say, Hello, Madeline? Lily, it's been a while. Do you have a moment to talk? Of course. What's going on? I saw your message that you were back in Portland and was just about to reach out. I saw Natalie's post. How was the cruise? She must have assumed I had joined the family vacation. Something inside me, tight for days, loosened slightly at the sound of her unguarded voice. I told her everything. The betrayal by my family. The decisions I had made. And how I had asked Logan Price to prepare a will leaving my entire estate to her. Lily went silent on the other end. Then, after a long pause, she spoke in a trembling voice. Madeline, oh my God. I've seen how much you've sacrificed for that family all these years. You've always held them together as the eldest daughter. But they relied on you far too much. Even though I watched it happen up close, I couldn't do anything. I'm so sorry. You have nothing to be sorry for, I said gently. You always saw the real me. Just that was enough to save me. But, oh well? That kind of money. I can't accept it. This isn't a gift for you, Lily. This is my will. It's proof of my decision not to give a single cent to those who spent their lives exploiting mine. And that's why I want you to receive it. Because you're someone who will understand exactly what that money means. I heard Lily quietly sobbing on the other end of the line. Okay, Madeline, I accept your feelings. And I promise you, I am and always will be your true family, no matter what. Those words soaked into my heart like a warm light, more valuable than any fortune. Tears traced silently down my cheeks. They weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of relief and gratitude, long withheld over these past few days. Thank you, Lily. After hanging up, I opened the window of my hotel room wide. The cold winter air of Portland poured in, filling the entire room. It felt like that air was purifying my past and signaling the start of a new future. On my final morning in Portland, the sky was a brilliant, cloudless winter blue. I had booked a direct flight back to Singapore, departing that afternoon. There was nothing left in the city I felt attached to. The plane took off, and the city of Portland grew smaller beneath me. The house I had severed ties with had become a tiny, indistinguishable speck. Goodbye to my past. Goodbye to the curse that once bound me. A year has passed since then. From my office window overlooking the high-rise skyline of Singapore, the vibrant city stretches out again today. As the lead on a new project, I now manage a world-class team gathered from all over the globe. The work is stimulating, and on weekends, I go hiking with like-minded colleagues or explore new restaurants. At my side are not people trying to bind me through blood or obligation, but true companions, those who laugh with me as we pursue the same goals. One afternoon, I noticed an international letter placed on my desk. The sender was Lily Thompson. Inside the envelope was a neatly handwritten letter describing her recent life, along with a photo. In the photo, Lily and her family were smiling brightly. The letter read, I ran into Natalie the other day. She's apparently working part-time at a supermarket. I heard Uncle Daniel and Aunt Hannah had to give up their house because they couldn't keep up with the mortgage. They're now living in a small apartment. She looked at me with a hint of resentment, but I didn't say a word. I just gave a slight nod and walked away. As I read that line, my heart remained calm. There was no pity, no guilt, not even a sense of victory. It simply felt like hearing about people in a faraway country, people who no longer had anything to do with me. They are living the consequences of their choices. And I, too, am living the consequences of mine. Madeline, what you entrusted to me is worth more than money. It is the courage to live with integrity. We plan to build a modest but grounded and genuine happiness. I'm truly grateful that you've reclaimed your life. After reading the letter, I gently placed the photo of Lily and her smiling family on my desk. My decision had not been a mistake. It was not made to bring unhappiness to anyone. It was the best choice for me and for the people I truly care about to finally live in a way that brings real happiness.